Hello, everyone. Welcome to my Dallas interview series. We're going to be starting with head coach of Ence, Crimzo. Welcome, Crimzo. I wanted to start by asking you, when we talked to you on Coachable, you talked a bit about how you were taking a, maybe not a more laid back, but a more enjoyable approach to scrims. Has that changed at all as we've entered the final sort of preparation week for Dallas?
Not really, to be honest. I think a little bit more like focus on like individual things that we need to work on. That's like very crucial, I think, for Dallas. But in general, like the style hasn't really changed. Like, still like having a lot of fun. Not really like super like tense or like stressed over anything. I think it's been working out pretty well. So we'll see what happens in Dallas.
You talked as well previously about having a bit of an issue sort of trying to fill the void that you left in terms of in-game leader. Have you made much progress in terms of that, in terms of getting someone to sort of step up?
Yeah, actually think like the team's been doing a really good job recently. We've been focusing a lot on just like communicating and like making sure that we talk to each other and listen to each other, and a lot of that stuff because in our team there's not that many people that are super vocal. So it's been a challenge, but actually like there's been a couple of people that that have definitely stepped up to the plate. Definitely like Vestola and Ghost for specifically, like they've really stepped up. I've been trying to work with them and like basically give them like roles in game of like things that they need to do to like give us like better chances to win. And they've done a really good job of that, so I'm really proud.
In general, the word on the street has actually been pretty high on the Ence Scrimbucks. At least last week. Is that still true? Do you still feel, are you feeling increasingly confident the closer we get?
I mean, if Scrims is an indicator of what our performance can be in Dallas, then I think we can definitely be like a very strong team. I think in the past maybe two and a half weeks, we've only lost maybe like two scrims, and so like we have been doing really well in scrims. But I think the challenge is, how much of that can we like implement into a match when shit kind of hits the fan. Um, so it kind of remains to be seen. It's definitely going to be a challenge, but scrims have been going well, but obviously scrims are not matches, so we'll see what happens.
You're one of the people who have had experience playing against with a lot of the players you're going to run into in Dallas. Now the Korean teams are coming over. The Korean teams have been here about a week. Would you feel since scrimming the Korean teams, you're more confident or less confident than you were prior to them flying out?
Honestly, when we scrimmed Falcons, it seemed pretty promising for us. Like they did not seem very good at all, to be honest. Obviously, they're a roster that's stacked with talent. Coaching staff is insane. But not playing against them, like it didn't seem like anything special. Like sometimes, like I think Korean teams and like Korean players are kind of like seen as like these impossible to beat like figures that like you're just a Western team and you feel like, oh, you're just gonna lose or whatever. But that's really just not the case. I think against Falcons, looking pretty beatable, I think, honestly. And then Raccoons, we were only able to scrim them one time, and to be honest, they kind of like kicked our shit in. But it was an off day. Maybe that's cope, but it did feel like an off day. But those guys are definitely way better. But we'll see what happens.
If you had to give a bit of a sort of power ranking then for the three regions, since you've probably been playing the vast amount of the teams at least come into it, what's the current sort of power read EMEA, North America, Korea?
I really think like I think it would be better to even like rank these like teams kind of like individually by like how I see them, at least like the top few, because I really think like at least like the top five is pretty contested. I think um, Toronto is probably like the most dangerous team, I would say, going into the tournament. I would say that us and London are very close in like power level. I think either of us could beat each other on like a good day. And then I think like the Raccoons are just way better than the Falcons from what I've seen and from what I've heard. So personally, I would say like it's kind of like from my POV, it's Raccoons, Toronto, and then like Falcons, and then us in London are kind of like basically tied for fourth, I would say, in terms of like where, like in my head, where everybody kind of is right now. But obviously, all that can change. I think any of these teams can beat anybody on like a good day. So it's really contested right now. I think going into Dallas is going to be like an awesome tournament, and it's going to be really exciting to see who kind of like comes out on top.
We've seen as well maybe a bit of a preview in some of the Face It games, both in terms of some of the matchups we might see, but also of how the meta's developing. We're seeing more Malga, more Venture, more Pharah. I'm not going to ask you to tell us what you're playing, but do you feel this sort of shift in the meta? Do you feel like it's like there's just a new meta comp that most people are going to be on, or is the meta just wide open for everyone?
It seems like teams are kind of like trending towards a specific style that was introduced by the Korean teams when they came over. I'm not going to go into specifics about it, but honestly, there's going to be a lot of different styles, I think, at Dallas that we're going to see. It really just comes down to like the team and what they want to play. I think every team kind of like has a style that they kind of like want to play, and then have like a little like slight variations of it depending on who they're playing. But in general, I think most teams are kind of trending towards a lot of one style that's kind of been being played right now. But I still think anything can happen. Anything's open. Like all these teams are able to play a lot of different comps. So we'll just see what happens, I guess.
Would you say the way this meta shifted is good for your team or worse for your team?
I hope it's good for my team. I mean, I'm based on scrims. Like, it seems pretty good. I think we have a pretty good like understanding of what we want to do. We have a pretty clear kind of identity of what we want to do. And so honestly, like I am pretty confident going into it. It's just going to be a question of like when the lights are on, like are we able to stay focused and locked in and like do our jobs and communicate effectively is kind of like the question.
One of the players who maybe feels like they have maybe a bit more of a free role than they did before is Kevster. It feels like we're seeing him on more heroes than we have done historically. We're seeing him on Mei, Sojourn, Widow, Pharah, a bit of everything. Is that an active choice you made, or is it just sort of something that's happened as the meta's developed, or is it something Kevster's wanted to do?
Honestly, where we're at right now, he can kind of play. I mean, obviously, as a player, he can play like tons of like so many different heroes, right? And honestly, like right now in our team, it kind of feels like it's similar in the sense that like he can play so many different heroes like with our team, and then he can still have like tons of value. So honestly, it's kind of like a lot of it does come up to him in terms of like what hero he wants to play. But I just want to make sure that whatever hero he does play, like he has like a clear kind of like idea of what he wants to do, and then the team also does like have a really good idea of what they want to do with that hero. So as long as like honestly, I think like specific heroes and like comps sometimes like don't really matter. Like what really matters is like how you play them, and like if you understand like what you have to do to like win with the like in the matchup that you have. So honestly, like he can play whatever hero he wants. I don't really care as long as like the rest of the team kind of understands like how to win with that hero against like the team that we're playing against. And then just go from there pretty much.
And I wanted to get your thoughts because we're moving to a new map and ban system for Dallas. Obviously, the Korean team's got to sort of taste in it in the back half of their stage, where you're going to be able to pick. The loser basically picks the mode and the map from any remaining modes that haven't been played. Taking your team out of it for a second and how much it benefits or harms you, do you think it's a good change for the game and for the tournament structure?
I do think so. I think it does reward like teams with flexibility. I think in the Western like face it style where you can just kind of like pick ban whatever, you can kind of like always ban like your worst maps. But in this kind of system, like teams can take you to your worst maps, and if you are not able to like be flexible and perform on those maps, then you don't really deserve to win, I don't think. So honestly, like I do think it's like a positive change. I think it rewards teams that are more flexible. So yeah, I think it's not bad.
And then how do you feel if I ask you to put Ence into the equation then? Do you think it's a positive change that will help the team, or do you think it causes more problems for you?
Well, in the same sense that I just said that it rewards teams with flexibility, we don't have that much flexibility, to be honest, at the moment. Like, I think I was looking at the rosters and honestly think like in terms of flexibility, we're probably not very high. Like we have pretty specific players that play pretty specific heroes and can't really, wiggle much. But honestly, that's not like that can be like a good thing and a bad thing. I think like, it's a good thing in the sense that you get to kind of, practice what you're good at and like figure out how to win. But obviously sometimes it can be a bad thing because you can't really play like the I guess like optimal comp. You have to kind of like make things work, and that can be very stressful for like the team when like, oh, we can't just play dive, like we can't just do this, we can't do just that. Like, no, we can't do that. It's just a bad idea. So it definitely tests the mental resilience of the team. But we'll find a way to make it work.
Has that been reflected in your preparation? I think maybe in your series against SSG recently in Face It, when you went to Route 66, on paper, that would be a classic map where, oh no, they're going to go dive and it's not an option available for us. It could be a difficult map. But it felt like you actually had a pretty good read on how to play quite a difficult map to play, not dive. Has a lot of your preparation been focused on essentially the sort of bogey maps that you feel like teams might try and take you to?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of obvious. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's kind of obvious what our weakness is, right? Like, and we've been working on it for a very long time. And it's not like all of a sudden we're just gonna like randomly be able to play like Monkey Anna with our current roster. So, we have to just find a way to make it work, and we got to keep talking about it, keep reviewing it, and then when the time comes, like we'll see what happens. But I think the most important thing is to just like understand, like if we do try to play dive and match these teams on dive, most likely we're just not going to win, right? Because we just lack the experience. We don't have that much coordination, and like we just don't have like the time to kind of like put into all of that stuff. So, we have our play style, and I mean honestly, it's been working pretty well. Obviously the London match really really close to Route 66, like one fight difference, like one minor difference, and that fight could have been, or like that the whole map could have been, a huge or a completely different like story. But yeah, I think we have weaknesses. It's obvious, but we are working on them very hard, and I think we have, we're in a good spot right now, and so it's just going to be a test to see if we can kind of implement the things that we've been doing that have been working for us so far, to see if we can, take down these teams.
Then the other thing that's sort of come alongside this map ban system that's maybe been talked about a little bit less is that all the first maps are going to be predetermined. How do you feel about this being true and being a factor in terms of there's an element of RNG now in terms of what map you get versus what opponent to begin with?
Yeah, I kind of shit myself. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, but like I kind of shit myself when Ilios was an option against Falcons in the first round. I just really wanted to avoid that map because it's just such a headache, and we would have had to like cook up something like really crazy, which we would have done, and maybe it would have worked, maybe not. But like just really happy, honestly, we didn't get that map, to be honest, because obviously it's such a strong dive map, and it's kind of one of our weaknesses. So I think predetermined maps are not bad. I think it's totally fine. I'm just happy that we dodged Ilios, to be honest. I really hate that map. Even when I was playing the game, like I just hated that map. Actually, and like I'm an Ana player, and that's not a bad Ana map, but for some reason that map is just cursed. Like I've always said this in my entire career. That is my least favorite map in all of Overwatch. I hate Ilios.
Well, you get it in the next round if you win, so but maybe you won't have to face any Korean teams on it at least.
Yeah, I'll take London on Ilios. I don't care. That's fine. That's fine. We'll do some weird like rush stuff on ruins, and then we'll do some weird stuff on other maps. But that's fine. Just no dive, please.
So I want to ask you a little bit about LAN as well. You've actually got probably one of the most experienced teams going there in terms of not just players who have played in Overwatch League, but players who have played in major on-stage games as well. One of the big exceptions to that, obviously, is Ghost, who is the most fresh-faced of the group. How do you feel he'll cope going into a sort of new environment, playing in front of a crowd and a big crowd for the first time?
I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, right? I think he's someone that's kind of like doesn't really communicate too much. He's like very like kind of like soft spoken. It's kind of like maybe sometimes hard to hear him in like the comms, but so I think if hopefully like he's somebody that doesn't really like take it too like hard or like isn't like super stressed or anything like that. But I definitely think there's definitely like a clear kind of like experience difference there. So it's going to be really important to kind of like help him, get adjusted and get comfortable and help him like kind of like focus on what he has to do. That's why I kind of like I've been focusing a lot on like just like being able to like communicate with each other and like talk to each other and kind of what is expected out of like each player. Like literally, like I created like jobs for them, like my team in terms of like what is kind of like expected of them and what's needed from them to for us to be able to win. So, I'm kind of hoping that once kind of like once we get on stage and once like the lights are shining, that people are able to kind of like fall back on like the foundation of like, oh, this is my job, this is what I have to do. Despite everything that's kind of like going on around me, like I have to do this, otherwise like we're not going to win, right? So that's something that I've been focusing on a lot. I'm pretty hopeful that we'll be able to figure something out and he'll be able to like be comfortable. But I guess we'll see. There's not really a way to kind of like know until like the moment happens, really.
Yeah, there's no real suitable test or practice you can do to this. You kind of just have to experience it.
Yeah.
Do you think having some people, like maybe particularly Kev and Kai, maybe even Master as well, are actually quite relaxed players in terms of, I guess, like vibe around match time? Do you think that'll actually help calm Ghost nerves, having that kind of like, oh, everyone else is relaxed, maybe I don't need to be so tense?
I mean, those guys are probably relaxed like outside of the server, but like in the server, those guys are kind of maniacs. Like they'll probably be like screaming and yelling and doing like, obviously, like this is very high energy, right? We're in a match. But no, those guys are definitely like, those are probably two of our biggest like communicators. So I think they're definitely going to bring it on match day, like very confident there. I mean, Vest Masa, obviously, third place with Finland last World Cup. They beat Korea. And then obviously Kai Kev with, been around for a very long time, tons of land, tons of experience. So I'm very confident that those guys are all going to bring it. It's just going to be about like kind of like keeping things kind of in line and like not like let shit hit the fan and just all of us kind of like go crazy. That's going to be like the real test.
Obviously, you've got a lot of experience yourself as well. If there's one piece of advice you would give to Ghost before sort of that first big match or first time on stage, what would it be?
For me, whenever I was playing on stage, like usually the first map is kind of like where things are kind of like everybody's kind of has nerves. I think that's normal. Like it's the very first map of playing on stage. Like the crowd is all cheering and it's very like energetic. And that's like fine. That's normal to be like a little bit nervous or like a little bit jittery. I think that's like common. But then usually like for me at least, after map one, it would like kind of calm down and things would kind of like get back to normal and you can just like really hard focus on the kind of like the game. So I guess that kind of be like my advice would be just focus on the game really hard, like focus on what you have to do, try to obviously like block the outside noise and just focus on what your jobs are and what you have to do and like what's expected out of you. And I think it's going to give you the best possible like chance to win, basically. I think there's not too much to it. Obviously, it kind of like depends on person to person, but that's what I would say.
And then if we think about your first match in particular, obviously you have Falcons. It's probably the first game that most people are looking forward to out of the opening fixtures. How confident do you feel in that specific matchup?
Well, we have two teams with not very different styles, but like different styles in terms of like what they think is best. I think it's going to be like a clash of ideas. I think it's going to be a very interesting game to watch. Honestly, don't know who's going to like take it. I'm pretty confident that we can take it, but at the same time, like they're a very strong team. They are very tough to beat. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll definitely be like a clash of ideas, but it'll be fun. I think it'll be a close match. And we'll see what happens.
And then if I ask you about the sort of entire tournament, obviously the obvious answer is you want to win it all. But is there a certain minimum level you would be satisfied with, or what's the sort of minimum expectation of like, oh, if we got top 4 or top 3 or whatever it is, I'd be okay with that?
Yeah. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think like honestly, I think obviously everybody wants to win. I think that's like the obvious answer. That's kind of boring. But honestly, like I just want to beat London or Toronto. That's all I care about. I don't really care about the Falcons. I want to be one of those two teams. And that's going to be my goal. I don't care about the Korean teams. Like we can lose to them. We can lose to Falcons and then go into loser bracket and then beat Toronto. I'll be happy. Like that's fine with me. So honestly, that's kind of what I'm going to look for.
Looking to be the king of the West.
Yeah, why not? That's. Can you imagine the amount of shit talk I can do in scrims? Oh my god.
Well, wishing you all the best to you and the team, and I'm sure everyone's very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much for your time today, Crimzo.
Thank you very much.